Democrats are pro-accountability, equal treatment under the law, and for paying your taxes.
To be looking at the fact that in 2017, Trump's first year in office, he also made $6.5 million from China.
If the gentlelady from Georgia wanted to follow evidence, we should also take a look at, hypothetically, a case where sex trafficking charges against a 17-year-old girl.
Do you think the president's son-in-law, not as an IRS agent, as a person, do you think the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who worked in the White House, couldn't get security clearance until the president made it happen, was put in charge of Mideast peace, and with no investment experience got $2 billion?
Now, can you discuss these payments? Because my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are wondering what the apostrophe is when we're talking about the Bidens, and it seems there are more Bidens right here who are receiving money.
So in an answer to his question regarding President Biden, and in an answer to this question, any documents that we believe that we may have in our possession, we can turn over to the House Ways and Means Committee. They can vote to release it to you.
The corruption of political parties can be seen through this hearing with IRS whistleblowers about the Biden criminal investigation. Corruption can erode confidence in our institutions and slow down government functions to a standstill. Must watch. Happen Just Now. Enjoy hearing your thoughts. Please leave comments. Thanks.
It's clear from this hearing that Democrats are pro-accountability, equal treatment under the law, and for paying your taxes. In the Hunter Biden case, we've heard that the Trump-appointed U.S. attorney took the extensive work of the IRS investigation and got the most severe penalty that he thought was possible, and he was held accountable. But there are so many millionaires and billionaires and big corporations that are never held accountable for tax evasion. And in fact, they are shielded by this GOP majority. Republicans are not interested in that kind of accountability. Instead, they're interested in trying their hardest to embarrass the president and prevent our government from operating as it should. If Republicans were truly interested in holding the powerful accountable, we would be holding hearings on making sure the IRS has the resources to investigate every billionaire and every big corporation who cheats on their taxes. But instead, the first bill that I voted on, the first bill brought forward by this Republican majority, was to slash funding dedicated to the IRS in order to chase down billionaire tax cheats. That would have brought us more revenue for us to, if we spend some money on the IRS to chase down tax cheats, that would have brought ultimately more revenue to the United States and reduced our deficits and improved programs for the American people. A 2021 Treasury Department paper found that the wealthiest 1% may owe more than $160 billion in uncollected taxes. According to the New York Times, quote, tax compliance rates are high for low and middle income workers who have their taxes deducted automatically from their paychecks. The rich, however, are able to use accounting loopholes to shield their tax liabilities. So I'd like to reiterate, low and middle income Americans have high tax compliance rates. They pay their taxes. It is the very wealthiest and the biggest corporations who refuse to pay their fair share and rig the system here in DC in their favor. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm interested in whether you could commit in short order to holding a hearing about holding billionaires and big corporations accountable for evading their taxes. I think this could be a bipartisan hearing. It could result in reductions to the deficit. And if we have interest in holding folks accountable on tax evasion, I think we should be looking at the biggest fish we can across the board.
We're starting here today.
No, but we're having a hearing about accountability. But what I want to know is why it is folks have voted for cutting billions of dollars in order to let folks off the hook. So I'd be interested, if we could have a hearing on the fact that the IRS has lost to attrition thousands of employees, including those with sophisticated skills. It used to be that 41,000 audits happened a year for millionaires. That was 10 years ago. But in fiscal year 2020, the IRS only audited 11,000 millionaire returns. Only about 7,100 of those returns were audited by revenue agents who are the most highly qualified auditors. So I want to know, Mr. Chairman, can we have a hearing? I think this is something we could all get behind. Have a hearing about billionaires and big corporations at large scale, potentially getting away with, from the latest reports, we're talking about $160 billion in uncollected taxes. I would like to see whether there might be interest from anybody on the other side of the aisle on us having that kind of a hearing. Any interest? Really, I have over a minute of time. Mr. Sessions, that'd be great. I think that would be a good hearing for us to have. Yeah, we want everybody to follow the law. I agree. And with that, I yield back my time to the ranking member.
I want to talk about what we should be prosecuting. We should be looking at the fact that in 2017, Trump's first year in office, he also made $6.5 million from China, his tax returns show. The source of the China payments is not clear from the returns. The payments were a surprise since Trump is an outspoken critic of the $5.8 million that Hunter Biden made. The difference is Trump was our president when he made this money from China, whereas I'm sure you would agree with me, Hunter Biden has always been a private citizen. We've got a lot of other stuff. In fact, it's clear that Trump never paid more than $750 in taxes for, I want to say, a total of like 2 years of his taxes, which is absolutely insane. But we also know that it showed that Trump claimed large cash donations to charities, but the report said the IRS did not verify them. The report also said that while Trump's tax filings were large and complicated, the IRS does not appear to have signed experts to work on them. That is shameful. In addition to that, we heard testimony earlier that talked about whether or not you executed a search warrant under Section 913.420 of the DOJ's Justice Manual. It specifically states that when searching the premises of an attorney that is the subject of an investigation, prosecutors are expected to take the least intrusive approach consistent with vigorous and effective law enforcement. It's kind of what they did for Trump when they gave him a number of opportunities to turn over the documents, our national secrets, that he kept in the toilet. But he chose not to, and that's why he is facing federal charges down in Florida. And finally, I just want to make sure that we clear up something about the Central Park 5, because I don't think my colleague from the other side of the aisle understands.
Characterization of what happened there is, I'm sure, very hurtful and harmful to the Central Park jogger. I wish you wouldn't have. There's more to that story, and you know very well. Thank you.
That not only were they found to be not guilty, they were paid $41 million in a 2014 settlement because their civil rights in that lawsuit were violated. In addition to that, we do know that one of the Central Park 5 now serves on City Council, Yusuf Salam.
Good afternoon, Mr. Shapley and Mr. Ziegler. And I want to thank you both for appearing before us today. I understand that this is not easy. And it is very important that both of you are respected during the course of this hearing. Mr. Ziegler, in your deposition to the Ways and Means Committee, I believe you said that that you began this investigation in 2018, correct?
That is correct.
And so some of the events that you discuss in your deposition took place 2, 3, 4 years ago, correct? Over the last several years.
Yeah, that would be correct.
In your deposition in front of the Ways and Means Committee and in your testimony before us today, you have relayed your memory of events that occurred over the course of a nearly 5-year investigation. And Mr. Ziegler, when you testified before the Ways and Means Committee, you also testified that you were told that it was then Attorney General William Barr who made the decision to merge the D.C. and Delaware Hunter Biden investigations, correct?
I did testify to that, correct.
And a few weeks after that testimony, your attorney wrote in a letter to Congress, I quote, Mr. Ziegler is confident he was told by his supervisor that the merging of the cases was at the direction of an official at the Department of Justice. However, on further reflection, Mr. Ziegler cannot definitively state that his then supervisor said that the Department of Justice official directing the merger of the cases was Attorney General Barr, correct?
That is correct, and I can tell you that I actually refreshed my memory from looking at my emails, and there was an email that I found from my supervisor at that time that stated what had happened. And I can turn that over to the House Ways and Means Committee at some point.
And in that updated email, does it include Attorney General Barr or not?
So I can't speak to the contents of that email, but...
No problem. I think in light of the correction, and truly in good faith, these things happen all the time, right? the recollection of these investigations require an extraordinary amount of detail, and the charges of what is being brought forward today are extremely serious, which require a high threshold of evidence, including investigations and depositions. But I hope you'd agree that even the best memory can be fallible at times, and that is the widely understood reality in our justice system. Mr. Shapley, from your testimony today, I think you would agree that it is important that criminal investigations be conducted fairly and free from political influence. That's why we're here today, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, as you stated, and as was kind of discussed with Mr. Khan and with others, there are often disagreements. It seems as though within some of the transcribed interviews that we read, it says, yes, about 90% of the time, there is this IRS reviewing attorneys disagree with the charging decisions of the agents in the group, correct?
That was part of the testimony, not all of it.
In some of your comments, you've also noted that you've made reference to a special counsel in this situation. But I believe what there might be a reference to here is the question of a special attorney, not a special counsel, correct?
So if you're speaking about the October 7th, 2022 email that I documented contemporaneously on that day, that's why I documented it on that day, so that, 9 months later, I'm not trying to recall a specific word. And so it says special counsel authority. That's what he said that day. That's what a senior executive IRS corroborated when he responded to my email as well.
And I do think that distinction is important, because in this letter to Chairman Jordan, the issue at hand seems to be a special attorney, not a special counsel, which are two distinct, different legal authorities. And there also may be some confusion, I think, with respect to that as well. Which brings me to the point of political influence. Where there actually is a set of breadcrumbs, however, is in a set of tweets and letters sent from former President Trump to several chairs, to the chair of the House Judiciary Committee that we see here. In fact, according to New York Times article, which I'd like to present to the record today, President Trump's attorney wrote to the Judiciary Committee chairman, urging him to investigate what he called, quote, a rogue local district attorney. And after that New York DA convened a grand jury that ultimately indicted Donald Trump, Chairman Jordan complied with that letter. Shortly after, President Trump's attorney sent that letter to the committee, which is highly unusual, a very highly unusual act. And in fact, after that, on March 20th, Chairman Jordan, together with the Committee on House Administration, Chairman Brian Steele, as well as the chairman of this committee, wrote to District Attorney Bragg and then demanded a sweeping series of documents, including communications between the DA's office and the Department of Justice, also highly unusual. In fact, on his Truth Social account later on, Donald Trump claimed that the U.S. attorney investigating Hunter Biden, a U.S. attorney, by the way, that Donald Trump appointed, was, quote, a coward. And then in that, he then urged that maybe the presiding judge will have the courage and intellect to break up this, quote, cesspool of crime. Curiously, just a few days after this tweet, the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, Jason Smith, sent a letter to U.S. Attorney David Weiss and Attorney General Merrick Garland, who are implicated in this hearing, explicitly asking them to place the whistleblower testimony from the committee's depositions into the court record, which were addressed during the chairman's opening statements, before Hunter Biden's plea hearing at the end of the month. And as you can see right here, Chairman Smith explicitly said, and I quote, entering this information into the formal record. Additionally, those two chairmen waived onto this hearing today. Highly unusual.
Will the gentlelady yield?
And one moment. And when we talk about political influence, we are not here today, unfortunately, because the facts have brought us here. We are here today because Donald Trump is exerting an influence campaign. in Congress when he is no longer president of the United States. In addition to that, if we want to talk about charges that have been dismissed, and if we do want to follow the evidence, perhaps we should discuss Ivanka Trump's investigation who was close to being charged with felony fraud after Donald Trump's personal attorney provided political contributions to the local DA. Those charges were dismissed, and ultimately we saw that DA Vance, President Trump's attorney, provided over $50,000 in political contributions after the case was dismissed. So when we talk about political contributions, I would hope, if we are following the evidence, that we are willing, that this committee, if this committee is going to go there, that they be willing to open investigations into the dismissal of charges against Ivanka Trump. And, by the way, if the gentlelady from Georgia wanted to follow evidence, we should also take a look at, hypothetically, a case where sex trafficking charges against a 17-year-old girl.
And there should be no retaliation against you as whistleblowers. Unlike my colleagues that said nothing and supported President Trump when he retaliated and fired Vindman and escorted him from the building for appearing in an investigation. That shouldn't happen to you. But of course, they said nothing when it happened to other people. We heard a lot about the Bidens, the Biden family, Biden associates, right? Bidens, plural, the S, what does the apostrophe mean? But not Joe Biden. Didn't hear a lot about Joe Biden. Why? Because he didn't do anything. This has nothing to do with him. You know, my colleagues talked about foreign countries, foreign entities, trying to make it all scary for the American people. Of course, President Trump got $5.4 million from the Chinese while he was president because they were leasing space in Trump Tower. He goes out and air kisses President Xi. Totally perfect. Jared Kushner gets $2 billion from the Saudis, even though he oversaw Mideast peace. Totally kosher. Ivanka Trump, she's doing business with the Chinese while she's working in the White House. Totally beautiful. Right? Why do I bring that up? They want to say you have credibility. The problem is they have none. They have no credibility. And because you're here at their behest, their lack of their credibility questions your credibility. Not because of you personally, but because of what they've done over the last several years. So the chairman says you're credible. You want to know actually what they feel about you? People like you who work in government. I got pages of it. It goes on for years. But you know what? I'll just read a couple of adjectives. Trump has called people like you, so-called whistleblowers, fake whistleblowers, partisan people, political hack jobs, scams, frauds, traitors, cowards, spies, losers, clowns, thugs, puppets, unelected bureaucrats, the swamp, and my favorite, the deep state. By the way, you members of the deep state? You members of the deep state? Did you stop paying? It's a rhetorical question. Did you stop paying your deep state dues? Did you not attend the latest deep state meeting? Is that why you're not in the deep state? I can't tell when they want people like yourself to be in the deep state, not in the deep state, depending upon what the deep state is saying. Again, it undermines their credibility. It undermines government. It undermines the Americans' trust in government. It undermines our institutions. And throughout all of this, for years, 4 years of it, they said nothing. And now, in an effort to own Hunter Biden, they're assembling nude photos of him, right? Having some intern have to sit in a room and blow up these photos and put it on poster board and figure out, which ones are beyond the pale. Mr. Shapley, you said that the DOJ was slowing down the investigation. But some of that happened when President Trump was president. And I found it strange that when my colleague tried to ask both of you these questions about when your perceived slowness of this happened, you all struggled for a period of time to admit that it started under President Trump. Was President Trump directing that DOJ to slow down the investigation? He wasn't, just like President Biden isn't now. So if there's any perceived issues with DOJ, it's with DOJ. It's not with the president. Mr. Ziegler, you said no one's above the law regardless of political affiliation. Do you think the president's son-in-law, not as an IRS agent, as a person, do you think the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who worked in the White House, couldn't get security clearance until the president made it happen, was put in charge of Mideast peace, and with no investment experience got $2 billion from the Saudis. You guys made a lot of noise today about 17 million, but what about 2 billion? Do you think as a person that should be looked at? Sounds a little strange.
Congressman, thank you for that question. Given the statute, I am limited to my testimony.
I understand. I got it. But think about it. $2 billion from a foreign country that he was put in charge of their policy while he worked in the White House.
Thank you. And I see that Hunter Biden and Gongwen Dong, a CEFC associate, established Hudson West 3 LLC, and each owned 50% of the company. Between August 2017 and October 2018, Hudson West 3 sent over $4 million to Hunter Biden and over $75,000 to James Biden, Hunter Biden's uncle. Now, can you discuss these payments? Because my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are wondering what the apostrophe is when we're talking about the Bidens, and it seems there are more Bidens right here who are receiving money.
So in an answer to his question regarding President Biden, and in an answer to this question, any documents that we believe that we may have in our possession, we can turn over to the House Ways and Means Committee. They can vote to release it to you guys.
Okay, I request that you release those to them. And then also, we have the situation with Gal Luft. That he was doing business with CEFC, and I guess that makes you a Chinese spy. So I guess Hunter Biden is a Chinese spy, according to their allegations. But do you have any information regarding Gal Luft that you could also turn over to the Ways and Means Committee?
So any information that I have in my case file, at the direction of my attorney, we can turn over to the House Ways and Means.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, gentlemen, for being here, your bravery, your courage for standing up. You know, we saw a lot of evidence today about millions of dollars being shuffled through these shell companies. We've seen delayed warrants to impact a 2020 election. Prosecutors instructed not to involve the big guy because optics. Well, the optics are very, very clear. Hunter Biden sold access to his father with an influence peddling scheme, which in my opinion compromises the current president of the United States.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to Happen Just Now for more content about accountability of all public officials and policy and procedures.